Good afternoon. Welcome in. Sports Talk at the stadium this afternoon from Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, where South Carolina held its senior day, and they come away with a victory over South Alabama. The Gamecocks win it by a score of 37-12. They scored a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter to spread this thing out, but it really was kind of a tight, tense struggle for most of the day for the Gamecocks because they didn't play clean football. They had a lot of turnovers and they had some untimely penalties. They did not take advantage of having the ball at the 1 yard line, first and goal, and knocking it in for a touchdown, for example, had to settle for a field goal. But at the end of the day, the Gamecocks come away with the win. The defense continues to play better, tacking that on the performance last week at Florida. They did not give in to some opportunities that South Alabama had to score touchdowns, and the defense kept the Jaguars out of the end zone, and they only allowed 289 yards, one of the best performances on the season for the Gamecock defense. Offensively, as I said, a lot of turnovers for the Gamecocks today. Mike Davis had a couple of turnovers. He hardly played because of those turnovers. They had a turnover on a punt return. Dylan Thompson had a pass picked off. So they weren't their sharpest today by any means. Even though it was the last home game and it was senior day, they were playing an inferior opponent. So how mentally sharp the Gamecocks were coming in was really hard to judge. But they were the superior team. They had the better talent. And in the end, that won out, and they just wore down South Alabama in the fourth quarter. Dylan Thompson had except for the interception, had a pretty good day. He went over 3,000 yards passing on the season. He ended up on the afternoon going 10 of 17 for 237 yards and the one touchdown pass that he had. Pharaoh Cooper threw a touchdown pass. They put a little wrinkle in the game and had Cooper at Wildcat and split Thompson out. It was a play that Cooper thought they would save for the Clemson game next week, but they went ahead and ran it today, and it was very successful. He threw a nice pass into the right corner of the end zone for Thompson, who went up and grabbed it for the touchdown. That was one of the real offensive highlights on the day. And also the play of Brandon Wilds, who said after the game that he will come back for next season. He does not think he's ready to come out for the NFL draft. He led the rushing with 77 yards, and he also lined up in the Wildcat and took the direct snap. In fact, the Gamecocks used Brandon Wilds in that situation. They used David Williams in the Wildcat, and they used Pharaoh Cooper in the Wildcat. So I think Spurrier just throwing a little something else out there for Clemson to think about this week in preparation. Cooper, by the way, had 3 catches for 95 yards. Nick Jones had 3 catches for 53 yards, including the touchdown catch from Dylan Thompson. So the Gamecocks took care of business here today. They become bowl eligible once again. And as Spurrier pointed out, they're guaranteed to have a non-losing regular season, regardless of what happens up at Clemson next week. But the key thing is they got through the game without any serious injuries. Rico McWilliams did suffer a concussion, and Alan Knott did suffer a sprained knee. But other than that, the Gamecocks have avoided major injury in this one. All their key weapons will be ready to go next week up at Clemson. And so the Gamecocks now can turn their focus towards the Tigers. In fact, Lorenzo Ward pointed out in the post-game press conference that he's aware that Clemson has this countdown clock that has been counting down all year to this game, and as he pointed out, that week is now here. So it will be an intense week of practice, both here in Columbia and at Clemson, and I'm sure it will be a rowdy, intense crowd on hand at Death Valley next Saturday whenever the kickoff time is set. I don't think we'll know that until tomorrow, so it should be a heckers. But for today, a successful senior day here in Columbia. It was a beautiful afternoon. Far from a capacity crowd, a little bit over 70,000, they announced. They saw a Gamecock team that kind of slopped it around for the most part, but was good enough to win. And especially, one thing the Gamecock fans can take from this is that the defense rose up and did not allow a touchdown, though they still had their issues, especially on third down, where South Alabama had too much success converting third down on some of their drives and keeping the football. But again, the defense did not let them in the end zone. So the first part of the season is now behind us. We now get ready for state championship week. And we'll talk all about it next week, of course, on Sports Talk. Now, Sunday, we'll have Steve Spurrier's weekly teleconference for you right here. And of course, you can get more from today's game here at sportstalksc.com, Spurrier, and others from the Gamecock locker room. So again, USC wins at 37-12. That'll do it for this edition of Sports Talk at the Stadium from Williams-Brice in Columbia.